New year, new me. New policy. Let's IBC. Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. This is going to be our New Year episode. So when I was writing notes actually to finalize what I wanted to share and discuss on today's episode, because I do that, I normally and frequently have an outline for every episode. And I thought back as I was just pondering here before we hit record of a Jim Rohn quote that I'll have to paraphrase, but I do remember that he essentially said, we're not trees, okay? Meaning we can move if we want to, okay? We're not stuck there. And then I think he said that one. And then I know that he said something along the lines of, whoever heard of a tree that didn't grow as big as it could? They never stop. They never stop. Trees never stop growing until they can't anymore. Okay? Until they die, they just keep growing. And when I think about the ending of one year, the beginning of another, I know folks feel one way or the other. They hate the new year, new me sentiment. They love the new year, new me sentiment. What are those things called? Not initiatives, not prerogatives, not goals, New Year's resolutions. Some people love resolutions. Some people don't love resolutions. What I would actually say is if you consider the word to resolve, it's a strong word. It's not as fickle as maybe it's made out to be. That's what I'm getting at, I guess, here is the attitude, okay? Let's talk about attitude, I guess, which is appropriate because when Nash would address even considering, let alone implementing the infinite banking concept, he would start with the human problems. Well, attitude is most certainly a human problem. And problem not meaning that it's always bad, our attitude, but it's certainly something to address, okay? So how we address this idea of being resolved. See, for me, boy, do I feel just a fortified sense, a real constitutional sense of strength when I consider the word resolved. That actually puts a song in my mind. This might be me all over the place. I am resolved no longer to linger. I shouldn't be even trying to get a tune out. I should just give you the words. I am resolved no longer to linger, charmed by the world's delights. That's things that are higher. Okay, I'm going to stop there. It does keep going. I know more, but resolved is a really, really strong word, or at least it can be. So when I think of the ending of another year and the beginning of this new one, I can't help but think of how did that one go? What do we want in the next one? What do we have going on? What do you have going on in your household, in your family, in your life? And we're so different from trees in that we're not stuck in a place. We don't have to be there. And by a place, I don't necessarily mean a location, but a place could be in so many different senses of the word, right? But we're not stuck in that place. And not only that, but if we will confront what Nash would call the arrival syndrome, this always perplexed me, okay? As far as I know, I've always loved to read. Now, I didn't always have the opportunity to read in government schools because you were mandated to do some things and you weren't allowed to do other things. I think there should certainly be lots and lots of time for reading for those that are inclined to whatever extent, and it certainly should be encouraged. But I've always loved reading. I probably read more fiction than nonfiction, but I would say it's a good mix. But there was also a time in my life where after college, I'd started two different careers at that point. I'd been in law enforcement for several years, and then I'd been in public education as an educator myself, high school teacher. And I had this revelation. I had this enlightening to personal growth and development. And I went on a several years binge into just reading, aside from my Bible, I just went on a binge of. I was not reading fun and fictional books. I was reading personal growth and development. I was reading books on mentality. I was reading books on business. I was reading books on finance. I was reading books on just developing yourself. And whether that was, I'll give you some highlights here, and I'm looking around because I'm surrounded by books, if you can tell, whether that was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, whether that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, whether that was The Infinite Banking Concept by R. Nelson Nash, of course, and his second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership, John C. Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws, also his 5 Levels of Leadership was great, The Richest Man in Babylon, The 5 Love Languages, The Power of Positive Thinking, As a Man Thinketh, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto. So many different in so many different areas too. But I went on this binge because I found this reawakened desire to learn. And then when I did get around to Nash's book, when I did have somebody introduce me to that book, and I saw where he had said something about the arrival syndrome being absolutely necessary and perhaps the most confrontational, the most difficult out of the human problems to confront, I got it. It made sense to me because there I'd been, 30 years old, ballpark it, had a 4-year degree, successful in a career, had licenses, things, certificates, things to put up on the walls, growing family. And it was just an awakening for me, to use a phrase, a word that would be known to folks who've read Nash's work. He used that same word, awakening, when he came up with the infinite banking concept. And for all the gentlemen out there, bear with me. Let's check our egos. I'd have to be the first one to do so. I'm laughing because I'm also remembering that, at some point, my pastor had said something along the lines of, a man's not a man until he's probably 30 or 35 years old, which makes sense because if you've ever considered the life of Jesus Christ, he apparently went out on his ministry starting at 30 years of age. So, the ladies seem to progress and develop mentally, sooner than us men. And I can certainly own now that was the case for me. The immaturity that I brought to such an age, it just is what it is. But I am thankful that there was that time where I could confront my own sense of arrival of being bilingual and having a 4-year degree and all these other different things, and a book so simple such as Nash's just changed and gave me a new lens that I now filter so many things through now. It's a lifestyle that we have in our marriage now and in our family now. Even our young children know that we're our own bankers, that we buy and own and use policies, and superficially they're aware of some things. So let me try and bring all this together. I guess I've got more points that I wanted to cover with y'all, the next being imagination. But the idea that we're looking at a new year, I'm excited about it. I've written out notes and plans about the new year. I've written down accounts and notes to recap and evaluate and consider this past year. And I'm talking about on a personal level, not just in business or, money things that we're doing, but just as a father, as a husband. I have concerns in those areas of my life as well. So it's good to evaluate where you're at. I'll give Jocko Willink another shout out. He'll ask guys, he says, regularly, one of his very first questions is, what's the most important thing to know on the battlefield? And, he'll say that guys will commonly say, well, to know where the enemy is. And he'll say, yep, that's good. But that's not the most important thing. Actually, the most important thing is to know where you're at. What good does it to know if you're right by an enemy base? What good does it know that there's an enemy base right here? But if you've got troops, let's say, poorly positioned in a bad, see, you got to know where you are. That's your point of reference. Okay. So hopefully I did that justice. I'm just trying to say it's a good, impactful thought. So if I move on into my notes here, after talking about trees and things that my preacher said and that Jocko Willink has said, and my own revelation in reading great nonfiction books, here we are. Imagination. When Nash describes how to consider even the infinite banking concept, because I know that there are plenty of folks that are probably not yet clients that are going to hear this information, and you're vetting this idea of becoming your own banker. Maybe you're trying to learn more about me and know some more about me, get to know me. He lists 4, okay? So he lists, to consider the infinite banking concept, you got to start with imagination, you're going to use reason, you're going to use logic, you're going to use prophecy. I'm going to focus on imagination right here, because when I consider us looking at a new year, so again, whether you're a client already and you're regularly tuned in like you are, I appreciate you. Again, also, if you're new and you're trying to get to know me and this idea of becoming your own banker, imagination for all of us, for the clients, for those that are researching, for me, okay? I wrote this down because it was something that crossed my mind. I need to approach this new year with a new level of imagination. See, it's called the infinite banking concept. See, all of it applies to imagination. My goodness, you have to be imaginative to consider infinity. You have to be imaginative to consider the machinations of what's going on in the traditional or conventional banking system, and certainly to implement your own personal version to have a private banking system. And then concepts, dealing in concepts takes imagination. So imagination is so very important for me looking at this new year and everything that we're doing on our podcast and our channel, and working with clients, the current clients that we have, that we already service and facilitate and work with, but also new clients, being imaginative in that area and how we can better help people and better serve people in implementing this infinite banking concept. And then, of course, personally, myself in my marriage, in my fatherhood, in business and home, and everything else that we have going on. Imagination is so important. Nash said that imagination, of those 4 characteristics, imagination, reason, logic, prophecy, he said imagination was the most important. And I believe that he referenced, or I've at least picked this up, Albert Einstein, when Albert Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Now, coming from a verified genius, that's something to me. That really is significant to me, that Albert Einstein is quoted as saying that imagination is more important than knowledge. So I think that's so powerful, so powerful. Whether it's us as parents perhaps letting our children figure out a way to do something. It doesn't matter whether it's tying shoes. They might come up with their own better way of tying shoes that serves them well. Something, well, even me saying that out loud, something like that makes me think of how Nash mentioned, what was his name? Carl Gauss, who came up with, and this is just an interesting subject, side note, kind of, but other countries teach mathematics differently, except, when you come down to it, math is math. 2 + 2 = 4. Doesn't matter what country you're in. So, but that's interesting that there are different ways of teaching math, just to give an example. Okay, so Carl Gauss came up with a really interesting way of figuring out a particular problem. Nash talks about it in his book. So I'm saying imagination plays a role there. Whether it's, things are being done out in the vast world the way they are, and then here comes a Henry Ford who says, no, we need an assembly line to really just knock this out in a very streamlined fashion to do this mass production. that takes imagination. So I'm encouraging you, do some things, find some things that are going to stretch your imagination. When it comes to the infinite banking concept, one practical point of consideration for me in our financial footprint is when we get to the end of a year or looking at a new year, I'm thinking about where we're at and building a system of properly structured whole life policies with mutual companies that pay dividends. I'm considering where are we at in warehousing our wealth? Where are we at in building the kind of legacy that we want for our children and charities that we care about, etc.? Where are we at in achieving the goals that we've described for ourselves at this time? Is it the appropriate time to add to that system? Is it an appropriate time? Do we need to change beneficiaries? Do we, are there things that we, and if you're already a client, and we of course have our regularly scheduled maintenance calls, if you will. Of course, we're always open and available to schedule something, but I like to talk with clients a couple or a few times through the year. Now, you can be as independent as you want to be. Of course, this is becoming your own banker. I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest cheerleader and encourager in becoming your own banker to the nth degree. Okay, but of course, we're accessible to share our best practices and to service and help clients every way that we can as well. Help speed up that learning curve. Help speed up the goals and plans that you're working on actively. So imagination is so very important is what I'm getting at there. And really, when you're focusing on being imaginative in these other areas, and then as time does go by, you consider, okay, when is it best to add to our system? It just should be a natural progression. And all I'm saying is that time is one of the elements. Okay, just because it's a new year doesn't mean you have to get a new policy. Let me be really tactically clear there. Just because you're in a new year doesn't mean you have to get a new policy. Now, do I feel the impetus when a new year comes about, or I have a birthday, to add more and to do more? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay. But there should be this natural progression over time too. Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. The longest journey starts with the first step. So there should be a natural progression in building a system of policies to where you can eventually get over the course of your lifetime. So, and what I mean by that is maybe it'll take you 5 years, maybe it'll take you 25 years. I don't know. But you can get to where your income equals your premiums. You can get to where you account for your entire need of finance with your own privatized banking system. So is a new year a good time to consider, just to get a check on, is this appropriate time to be adding to our system? Or again, like I said, changing beneficiaries or making a policy loan to do X, Y, or Z, making a loan repayment, whatever the case happens to be. Yes, it's a good time. It's a good time to use your imagination, get a check on things. Now, while I'm running through things that Nash encouraged us to do in his work, I get to education. I get to, talking about confronting that arrival syndrome, reading. So for those that are either, again, implemented this idea already, or you're still vetting the infinite banking concept, here are your resources. You can read Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. You can read Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. That's his second book. You can read How Privatized Banking Really Works. That's by Carlos Lara and Dr. Robert Murphy. And then there are other great resources, whether it's James Nethery's Banking with Life DVD, or it is R. Nelson Nash's. He's got a great documentary. You can find this on YouTube and in other places. There's a documentary. I believe it's called "This Is R. Nelson Nash." It's an hour long. It's great to be able to watch and hear a little bit about Nash, hear from Nash, because we don't have that opportunity this side of glory. To do that, to be able to learn and hear, some from him. I think that's really great. So those are your resources to continue your education in this concept right here. And I highly encourage that, because that's how we confront the arrival syndrome. Now, if I do say something else about getting a new policy, because I teased, I think I'll add that. I teased at the beginning of this video, new year, new me, new policy. Okay. There will be a natural progression to building a privatized banking system, meaning my wife and I, we've been implementing this concept for going on 8 years now, and we own multiple policies with multiple companies. We have 6 as of right now, with plans for more. And some real pragmatic things to consider on when to add could be, well, are you experiencing or going to experience in this new year, are you going to experience an increase in income or cash flows? Are you going to have a windfall that you're going to need to warehouse? Are you going to have a significant decrease in some regular expenses that had been ongoing, and now there's going to be a void there? So there are certain things that will make it apparent to you that perhaps too much money is building up in somewhere other than a policy, where it could be growing and compounding into the future forever, where you can still access it tax-free, etc. Implement it for the infinite banking concept. So those are some pragmatic things to consider on when it will be natural to add to your privatized banking system. And again, just if you're curious about that, if you have questions, call us. Let's talk. Nash would also say something else that to me stands out this time of year. He would say that we should be acting and planning intergenerationally. Even just this past week, I was on the phone with my brother, who's also a client, and we were talking about how for us, because we both implement the infinite banking concept, how we see some things differently now. And I know that it's so natural in so many lives for us to be just so busy that we don't hardly pick our head up to look around and see what's going on, to know what, this family member's doing, or that family member's doing, this sibling's doing, that one is. And it's a very different way culturally. It's a very different way than it has been for so long. Meaning, one of the greatest reasons why Lauren and I homeschool, even, for example, hopefully this isn't too much of a tangent, perhaps this will be interesting to you, is we didn't want our children segregated to that degree where they're just only with people for such a vast amount of their time throughout the day that are of the same age as they are. And I just feel like there's so much that's missed by not having them around younger people, older people, and so many different opportunities that are going to be missed because of that, by being boxed in. You can pee now, you can eat now. These are you're going to be around 30 other individuals that are of the same mentality and age and XYZ as you. Whereas Nash is saying here, plan and act intergenerationally. Now, one of my great inputs on my mentality is a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Great. It's good to leave tools and assets and money. But what's even better is to do so with knowledge and understanding and education. Train a child in the way they should go, okay, is a scripture. And we see this, that there are so many examples in life where someone wins the lottery or X, Y, and Z, and then they lose all that money. They don't keep it. And anybody stands the opportunity to earn more, but the real question is not how much do you earn, not how much do you make, but how much do you keep, okay? So how do you keep it? I think through education. When you know better, you can do better. So the education that can be promoted intergenerationally, and then that can be formulated into plans for, as we call our Durham clan, because we've got this big picture vision of who we are as a family and what we're doing and what we want to do and the impact we want to have and how we do want to be planning and acting intergenerationally. It's so very important. I get to talk with clients on a regular basis, and I'll have somebody from a different generation say, well, Jesse, this is what I'm dealing with. And they're in our process, right? They're in our process to get a policy to implement the infinite banking concept. And they're saying, Jesse, is this as good for young people? Because I've got this pension from work or the fire department or what have you. And, but my daughter, she doesn't. And I don't know that she's even doing anything with her 401k, et cetera. So there are just these types of things that will happen. And you see that there's every generation's essentially starting from scratch. And they're just trying to fumble, and find their way to success and to doing well. And by being born into this conventional banking system, we're born into financial slavery. I really saying that makes me really recognize how much I love Nash's second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. He's got this particular passage where he talks about out of Egypt into Babylon, and it's servitude, and we're talking about financial servitude right now in this moment. And I talk to so many people that are asking about their children or their grandchildren even. Of course, I'll get grandparents on the phone with me saying, Jesse, I'd like to start policies on this grandchild and that grandchild, and they're wanting to get something going for them. And I love those conversations. I absolutely love those conversations and help people implement this concept in that way. So planning and acting intergenerationally. That's a great encouragement that I have for everybody in this new year. How can we all better plan and act intergenerationally? And particularly when it comes to implementing the infinite banking concept. So if you are vetting this idea and you've got those that, you'd like to do something different, you'd like to set them at a different level than where you got to start at, whether that's children or grandchildren, or if you've got folks that, you need to be protected for their sake, and you see the value in accounting for your own need of finance, I really look forward to talking with you about how to implement that concept so that you can, when it comes to privatized family banking, you can implement the infinite banking concept. And I think it's so good for families to have not just regular family vacations. That's great. Lots of people do that. But to have family retreats, family getaways, family meetings, and you set that up how you want to set up. I've been reading a parenting book even recently. It's not my first one. I'm trying to be great there, but it was talking about family meetings, and there are lots of reasons to implement family meetings or retreats or getaways or excursions, but in particularly not just to enjoy time at the beach or time in the mountains, which those are great memories. Who doesn't have fond memories of, your getaways? Some of my favorite memories in life are still to this day mine and my wife's honeymoon. We had an amazing trip that we went on, just touring mainland United States, and so many national parks and cities and hot air ballooning and hiking out in the desert, her toting a frying pan. If you'd like to hear that story, let me know. How I had my wife toting a cast iron frying pan in the backcountry of the petrified forest in Arizona. Anyway, she likes to bring that up, so I might as well just own up to it now. But vacations are great memories, and yet to specifically have time and regular time set aside for family plans, big picture. Again, Nash had this core principle of think long range. That's so important. So using your imagination, thinking long range, planning and acting intergenerationally. What if something's implemented in 2023 that will impact your children's 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 children? I'm off screen with my hand now. I think children. Okay. I think I've said at least in one other episode, I actually live in a county where I can go and I can show my son his, I think it's great grandfathers, or is he mine? Anyway, 4 greats of a grandfather tombstone. But that's it. That's all I have. That's all I know. And that's something. It's amazing. And yet that's such a short time too, right? It's such a short time. Can you remember, 10 years ago? I can. So that's all I'm saying. What if we could do something this year that'll impact 8 generations into the future? That's so very encouraging to me. So very encouraging. So let me leave you with this. If you're brand new or you're vetting this idea of becoming your own banker, just consider what it could be like to, at the same time, get the protection and coverage that you should for your household, for your family, for your business. And at the same time, procure private, appreciating, self-collateralizing assets wherein you can grow and compound money for the rest of your life. Okay? You can amass capital in a growing, compounding fashion for your whole life by owning a whole life policy, properly structured with a mutual company that pays dividends. You could compound capital for your whole lifetime and yet still access a growing, compounding pool of capital for financing the cars, homes, vacations, business, equipment, fill in the blank, doesn't matter. What if you could do all of that at the same time? So you could do that for the first time in this new year of 2023. But by owning that, you know that you'll be able to do that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now. I want to be here 50 years from now. What if you could do that even then because of what you start today? Okay, so my encouragement to you is read the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. Dive in on this channel. And when you're ready for a conversation, don't hesitate to reach out. If you're already a client and you're looking at, you're recapping 2022, you're looking ahead at 2023, just consider this again. The 3 rules of banking. How did you do? How are you going to do? Pay yourself first. Pay yourself with interest. Recapture the money. Okay, so those are your pragmatic takeaways. And again, I look forward to our conversations that we're going to have with you already as clients in the upcoming year. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you'd like to have a conversation about how to implement privatized banking for your family, for your business, for your investing in 2023, I look forward to that conversation. And this has been a great pleasure for me. I hope you have a great day. Happy New Year. Take care. My name is Jesse Durham. For today's edition of It's fine. It's fine. I mean, yeah, whatever. It's good. It's good.